Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lizzy Co and the Artist's Way, featuring me, Lizzy Co, and The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This past week, I was looking at week 3, which is about recovering a sense of power. So, I would like to start by talking about some of the tasks that I looked at and worked through this past week. And then we'll go ahead and read through week 4, editorialize like we always do, and talk about what's coming next. So, the tasks this week were focused a lot on childhood reflection. And that was really hard for me because I have hazy, patchy memory of my own childhood. Anyone who had a tough upbringing likely can identify with that. So there were some tasks such as describe your childhood room. And I felt really resistant to that because my childhood room was not a happy place for me. But I trusted that I was safe here and now, and I sat with it and I did a little description, and it didn't kill me. It didn't send me back there. I stayed in the here and now. So that was really encouraging. Um, so that led me to get curious and explore some other tasks. Got hair on my mic. Such as describe 5 traits you like in yourself as a child. And that one brought me up short because I realized that most of what I liked about myself as a child was what I could offer to the people around me. Not so much just traits about myself as a person or what I like to do. Um, so that was a little sobering to realize as well that, like, oh, I really, from an early age, placed a lot of my self worth on what I could provide and what sort of care I could give. Hmm. Um, and then, in a similar way, I was asked to list 5 childhood accomplishments, and those were um, I realized how high of a bar I was setting for myself even as a kid because the examples in the book are things like trained the dog, short sheeted the priest's bed, punched out the class bully, and mine were things that were, got the best score in the state for my flute auditions one year. Like, really intense stuff that really only one person can have. So I realized that a lot of my accomplishments were really hard to get because they naturally created loneliness in my life because I could be the only person to have it. I had a real Highlander attitude about it, I'm realizing. Um, some some other tasks that were more encouraging though were I was asked to make a list of friends who nurture me without enabling me. And I realized that I've done a really good job of curating a group of people in my life who will celebrate me without enabling me. So it was pretty easy to make a list of a few people right off the bat that I could think of. And that is something I'm really proud of because I don't think that's something I would have been able to do before all the time I spent in therapy. I had the gift and the privilege of insurance that covered a good therapist, and the gift and privilege of the time to go every week and try to figure out a better way of thinking that felt healthier. And I think this list of friends that I discovered is one of the benefits of all of that hard work, is that I was able to build relationships with people who are good for me. And I hope that for all of you as well. Um, another another thing that kind of reminded me how much of a work focused self worth I have is I was asked to Thomas the cat is moving my mic all around, my apologies. I was asked to list 5 people I admire, and what I saw in common among all those people is that they are both really work focused. They're really high production. You know, one of those people was Taylor Swift because I just admire that she's put out 13 albums at this point. Even though people consistently tell her that she's shitty, I think she is really admirable that she doesn't listen to that hatred and she just keeps on making her stuff. So it's people who are in that same way. They're putting themselves out there, even though the feedback isn't 100% positive, because that's just what real life is. Nobody's getting 100% perfect ratings all the time. That's just not how it works. So it showed me that I am thinking a lot about self worth in terms of how much I can produce and how much I can connect. And I think those are both good things when they're treated with a sense of balance. Much like anything else in life, I suppose. So now let's do the weekly check in. How many days a week did you do your morning pages? And how was the experience? This week I did them 4 days out of 7. And the experience was a little less intense and uncomfortable than it was last week. I'm starting to get used to the idea that I might encounter something that I didn't want to encounter about myself, but I'm also realizing that just because I encounter it in that moment, it doesn't mean I have to deal with it right then. I can put a pin in it and I can deal with it later if I want to. It's just good to be aware in the first place. Um, so the experience was good overall. If when I skipped days, I mostly just skipped them because of the way my work schedule is. I work a pretty early day. I head into work around 6:15, 6:20 in the morning. So there are just some days where I just fully don't pull it together in time. Ooh, hello, Thomas the cat. Hi, bud. Uh, so there are some days where it just doesn't happen just because I was a little sleepy and I think I valued hitting snooze. So I think that's an interesting realization about my priorities right now. But I think I'm fine with that middle of the road 4 to 5 days a week morning page pace. I think it's something that feels a little more forgiving and sustainable. Um, Second question: did you do your artist date this week? I did. I Thomas, I did. Um, I took a walk around my neighborhood like I did week 1, and I listened to an audiobook of Amy Poehler's Yes Please, which is a book that I found really revolutionary when I first encountered it. And I'm realizing now how much I've grown and changed because as I listen to it, it just feels more like my own values rather than something radical that I wish I could have in my own life. So I took a walk around. I worked out all the stiffness that's been in my hips that's been bothering me. Instead of just thinking about how much it bothered me, I did something about it. I took care of myself. I listened to Amy Poehler read her own words that had brought me so much comfort, you know, back when I was in my 20s and just really at a loss. And, I went and I got myself a little treat while I was out and about as well. So it wasn't anything huge, but that's honestly what feels better to me right now. Um, Changes in my routine are hard, so when I make a change, it's easier if it can be small first. 3. Did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? I did. Speaking of Amy Poehler, she just kept popping up in my, uh, pop culture intake this week, I guess we'll say. She was the host of SNL this past week, and she also keeps popping up in my podcast feed because she has a podcast out that I keep meaning to check out and haven't yet. But I just keep noticing her name cropping up in what I'm encountering in the world, and I'm sure it has something to do with the algorithm. But I feel like if the algorithm is suggesting somebody as cool as her, then I'm kind of fine with it. I feel like I've curated it well. Um, and then 4, were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Um, I think similar to last week, I'm struggling a little bit with just distracting physical discomfort. I live in Boston, and we had a nor'easter come through that lasted for a few days. And that brings with it a lot of joint pain for me. And it brings a lot of just mental health discomfort as well. Um, so, so for me, I was trying really hard to focus on all of this self improvement and personal growth at the same time, just wondering like why when I'm not even 40 am I getting these rainy day aches and pains? It seems too soon. So that was I think significant in that it was a little distracting and pretty annoying. But it didn't bring everything to a grinding halt, which I'm pretty proud of. So all of that being said, let's now investigate week 4, which is titled Recovering a Sense of Integrity. Honest changes. Working with the morning pages, we begin to sort through the differences between our real feelings, which are often secret, and our official feelings, those on the record for public display. Official feelings are often indicated by the phrase, I feel okay about that. The job loss, her dating someone else, my dad's death. What do we mean by I feel okay? The morning pages force us to get specific. Does I feel okay mean I feel resigned, accepting, comfortable, detached, numb, tolerant, pleased, or satisfied? What does it mean? It's a little hard to see, but in the background here on the wall, I have a huge feelings wheel because this is something I have really struggled with in my own experience, is naming specific feelings. I can usually sense that I'm uncomfortable, but I can't always tell at first why. So having something like this where it really lays it all out is extremely helpful. Okay is a blanket word for most of us. It covers all sorts of squirmy feelings, and it frequently signals a loss. We officially feel okay, but do we? At the root of a successful creative recovery is the commitment to puncture our denial, to stop saying it's okay when in fact it's something else. The morning pages press us to answer what else. In my years of watching people work with the morning pages, I have noticed that many tend to neglect or abandon the pages whenever an unpleasant piece of clarity is about to emerge. If we are, for example, very, very angry but not admitting it, then we will be tempted to say we feel okay about that. The morning pages will not allow us to get away with this evasion, so we tend to avoid them. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. If we have the creeping feeling that our lover is not being totally honest with us, the morning pages are liable to bring this creepy possibility up, and with it the responsibility for an unsettling conversation. Rather than face this mess, we will mess up on doing the morning pages. By contrast, if we are suddenly and madly in love, the morning pages may seem threatening. We don't want to puncture the fragile and shiny bubble of our happiness. We want to stay lost in the sea of a blissful us rather than be reminded that there is an I in the we that is temporarily blinded. In short, extreme emotions of any kind, the very thing that morning pages are superb for processing, are the usual triggers for avoiding the pages themselves. Yeah, I definitely experienced that this week. Something I noticed is even something I was saying just today in my morning page was how I'm feeling myself in the messy middle of things, as Brene Brown would say. And it's something I recognize from early sobriety from alcohol, as well as from when I first moved into Boston from my life in rural Vermont. I'm noticing myself changing in ways that I think are good and that I do not want to reverse but are uncomfortable to experience in the moment. Just as an athlete accustomed to running becomes irritable when he is unable to get his miles in, so too those of us accustomed now to morning pages will notice an irritability when we let them slide. We are tempted always to reverse cause and effect. I was too crabby to write them instead of I didn't write them so I am crabby. Over any considerable period of time, the morning pages perform spiritual chiropractic. They realign our values. If we are to the left or the right of our personal truth, the pages will point out the need for a course adjustment. We will become aware of our drift and correct it, if only to hush the pages up. To thine own self be true, the pages say, while busily pointing that self out. It was in the pages that Mickey, a painter, first learned she wanted to write comedy. No wonder all her friends were writers. So was she. Chekhov advised, if you want to work on your art, work on your life. That's another way of saying that in order to have self-expression, we must first have a self to express. That is the business of the morning pages. I, myself, feel this way, and that way, and this way. No one else need agree with me, but this is what I feel. The process of identifying a self inevitably involves loss as well as gain. We discover our boundaries, and those boundaries by definition separate us from our fellows. As we clarify our perceptions, we lose our misconceptions. As we eliminate ambiguity, we lose illusion as well. We arrive at clarity, and clarity creates change. I feel like this is a great example of shifting from being in my 20s to being in my 30s and now late 30s, where my focus is now less on being in complete communion with the group that I'm a part of and more on making sure that I'm in alignment with my own values and that I feel like I'm doing the right thing with my own hands. And it's a huge relief because sometimes being in alignment with my values means being alone in the room. And I've learned that that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It just means that I maybe need to find a different room. Continuing on. I have outgrown this job may appear in the morning pages. At first, it is a troubling perception. Over time, it becomes a call for action and then an action plan. This marriage is not working for me, the morning pages say, and then I wonder about couples therapy, and then I wonder if I'm not just bored with me. In addition to posing problems, the pages may also pose solutions. I am bored with me. It would be fun to learn French. Or, I noticed a sign just down the block for a clay and fiber class. That sounds interesting. As we notice which friends bore us, which situations leave us stifled, we are often rocked by waves of sorrow. We may want our illusions back. We want to pretend the friendship works. We don't want the trauma of searching for another job. Faced with impending change, change we have set in motion through our own hand, we want to mutiny, curl up in a ball, bawl our eyes out. No pain, no gain, the nasty slogan has it. And we resent this pain no matter what gain it is bringing us. I don't want to raise my consciousness, we wail. I want... And thanks to the morning pages, we learn what we want and ultimately become willing to make the changes needed to get it. But not without a tantrum. And not without a kraya, a Sanskrit word meaning a spiritual emergency or surrender. I always think of kriyas as spiritual seizures. Perhaps they should be spelled C-R-I-A-S because they are cries of the soul as it is wrung through changes. We all know what a kriya looks like. It is the bad case of the flu right after you've broken up with your lover. It's the rotten head cold and bronchial cough that announces you've abused your health to meet an unreachable work deadline. That asthma attack out of nowhere when you've just done a round of caretaking your alcoholic sibling, that's a kriya too. Always significant, frequently psychosomatic, cryas are the final insult our psyche adds to our injuries. Get it? A crya asks you. Get it. You can't stay with this abusive lover. You can't work at a job that demands 80 hours a week. You can't rescue a brother who needs to save himself. In 12-step groups, cryas are often called surrenders. People are told, just let go. And they would if they knew what they were holding on to. With the morning pages in place and the artist dates in motion, the radio set stands half a chance of picking up the message you are sending and or receiving. The pages round up the usual suspects. They mention the small hurts we prefer to ignore, the large successes we've failed to acknowledge. Ooh, yeah, I have a hard time with both of these things. It's really easy to hang on to the hard stuff, and it's really tough to allow the positive things to accumulate and stick in the same way. In short, the morning pages point the way to reality. This is how you're feeling. What do you make of that? And what we make of that is often art. People frequently believe the creative life is grounded in fantasy. The more difficult truth is that creativity is grounded in reality, in the particular, the focused, the well-observed, or specifically imagined. As we lose our vagueness about ourself, our values, our life situation, we become available to the moment. It is there in the particular that we contact the creative self. Until we experience the freedom of solitude, we cannot connect authentically. We may be enmeshed, but we are not encountered. Yeah. As I was reading that, I found myself thinking about how I went no contact with my family. And there were a lot of reasons for that, but one of them was that I was not seen as a real person. I was seen as a photocopy of my mother with some odd mistakes. And anytime I was different from her, it was seen as strange and something to be corrected, not an example of me being a person. And when I was small, I sort of vacillated between fawning to get approval and fighting the erasure of my own self. And neither of those is a very nice way to live. And I never really found any other way to gain approval other than to give up any sense of who I am. So at a certain point, I realized that better late than never I wanted to be a person and not just somebody's pet. We continue on. Art lies in the moment of encounter. We meet our truth and we meet ourselves. We meet ourselves and we meet our self-expression. We become original because we become something specific, an origin from which work flows. As we gain or regain our creative identity, we lose the false self we were sustaining. The loss of this false self can feel traumatic. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't recognize me. Remember that the more you feel yourself to be terra incognita, the more certain you can be that the recovery process is working. You are your own promised land, your own new frontier. Shifts in taste and perception frequently accompany shifts in identity. One of the clearest signals that something healthy is afoot is the impulse to weed out, sort through, and discard old clothes, papers, and belongings. I don't need this anymore, we say as we toss a low self-worth shirt into the giveaway pile. I'm sick of this broken down dresser and its 16 coats of paint as the dresser goes off to Goodwill. By tossing out the old and unworkable, we make way for the new and suitable. A closet stuffed with ratty old clothes does not invite new ones. A house overflowing with odds and ends and tidbits you've held onto for some day has no space for the things that might truly enhance today. When the search and discard impulse seizes you, two cross currents are at work. The old you is leaving and grieving, while the new you celebrates and grows strong. As with any rupture, there is both tension and relief. Long seated depression breaks up like an ice flow. Long frozen feelings thaw, melt, cascade, flood, and often overrun their container, you. You may find yourself feeling volatile and changeable. You are. This is a process that I was always way more willing to do than my parents. I grew up in kind of a hoarderish household, and they came by it honestly. They both grew up without a lot of money, so they didn't see the value in getting rid of anything because what if it needed to be replaced later? What a waste of money. Um, Whereas I could see that there are some things that you really don't need to hang on to. The example, like the ratty old clothes. Clothes that aren't even fit to be worn anymore. Why are we hanging on to this stuff? Let's get it out of here. Um, but my desire to do this clearing and renewing was always shut down by the fear in my parents' hearts. Um, this this fear of that old you that is grieving and doesn't want to go through that process and would instead allow the new version of you to starve and not grow strong. Be prepared for bursts of tears and laughter. A certain giddiness may accompany sudden stabs of loss. Think of yourself as an accident victim walking away from the crash. Your old life has crashed and burned. Your new life isn't apparent yet. You may feel yourself to be temporarily without a vehicle. Just keep walking. If this description sounds dramatic, it is only to prepare you for possible emotional pyrotechnics. You may not have them. Your changes may be more like cloud movements, from overcast to partly cloudy. It is important to know that no matter which form your growth takes, there is another kind of change, slower and more subtle, accumulating daily whether you sense its presence or not. Nothing dramatic is happening to me. I don't think the process is working. I have often been told by someone who, from my perspective, is changing at the speed of light. The analogy that I use is that once we engage in the process of morning pages and artist dates, we begin to move at such velocity that we do not even realize the pace. Just as travelers on a jet are seldom aware of their speed unless they hit a patch of turbulence, so too travelers on the artist's way are seldom aware of the speed of their growth. This is a form of denial that can tempt us to abort the recovery process that isn't happening to us. Oh, yes, it is. When we have engaged the Creator within to heal us, many changes and shifts in our attitudes begin to occur. I enumerate some of them here because many of these will not be recognizable at first as healing. If fact, they may seem crazy and even destructive. At best, they will seem eccentric. There will be a change in energy patterns. Your dreams will become stronger and clearer both by night and by day. You will find yourself remembering your nighttime dreams, and by day, daydreams will catch your attention. Fantasy of a benign and unexpected sort will begin to crop up. I have noticed this. I typically don't remember my dreams, um, but I have noticed since I started doing the morning pages, they've lingered a little longer in my memory in the morning, sometimes long enough to write down. So, interesting. Many areas of your life that previously seemed to fit will stop fitting. Half your wardrobe may start to look funny. You may decide to reupholster a couch or just toss it out. Musical bents may alter. There may even be bursts of spontaneous singing, dancing, running. You may find your candor unsettling. "I don't like that" is a sentence that will leave your mouth, or "I think that's great." In short, your tastes and judgments and personal identity will begin to show through. What you have been doing is wiping the mirror. Each day's morning pages take a swipe at the blur you have kept between you and your real self. As your image becomes clearer, it may surprise you. You may discover very particular likes and dislikes that you hadn't acknowledged. A fondness for cactuses. So why do I have these pots of ivy? A dislike for brown. So why do I keep wearing that sweater if I never feel right in it? Conditioned as we are to accept other people's definitions of us, this emerging individuality can seem to us like self-will run riot. It is not. The snowflake pattern of your soul is emerging. Each of us is a unique, creative individual, but we often blur that uniqueness with sugar, alcohol, drugs, overwork, underplay, bad relations, toxic sex, underexercise, over TV, undersleep, many and varied forms of junk food for the soul. The pages help us to see these smears on our consciousness. If you look over the time you have been doing your morning writing, you will see that many changes have entered your life as a result of your willingness to clear room in it for your Creator's action. You will have noticed an increased, sometimes disconcerting sense of personal energy, some bursts of anger, some flashpoints of clarity. People and objects may have taken on a different meaning to you. There will be a sense of the flow of life, that you are brought into new vistas as you surrender to moving with the flow of God. This is clear already. I do think I'm experiencing a little bit of that. I feel like I used to feel this odd sort of severance style divide between me in my day job and me at home. And what I'm noticing now is I'm starting to feel some unification between those two things. I'm starting to bring a little more of my personal life, not personal life, but myself into work. And I'm starting to bring some of the good habits from work into my home life to help bring some organization there. That feels nice. You may well be experiencing a sense of both bafflement and faith. You are no longer stuck, but you cannot tell where you are going. You may feel that this can't keep up. You may long for the time when there was no sense of possibility, when you felt more victimized, when you didn't realize how many small things you could do to improve your own life. It is normal to yearn for some rest when you are moving so rapidly. What you will learn to do is rest in motion, like lying down in a boat. Your morning pages are your boat. They will both lead you forward and give you a place to recuperate from your forward motion. It is difficult for us to realize that this process of going inside and writing pages can open an inner door through which our Creator helps and guides us. Our willingness swings this inner door open. The morning pages symbolize our willingness to speak to and hear God. They lead us into many other changes that also come from God and lead us to God. This is the hand of God moving through your hand as you write. It is very powerful. One technique that can be very reassuring at this point is to use your morning pages, or a part of them, for written affirmation of your progress. Put it in writing, we often say when making a deal. There is a special power in writing out the deal we are making with our Creator. I receive your good willingly, and thy will be done are two short affirmations that, when written in the morning, remind us to be open to increased good during the day. I trust my perceptions is another powerful affirmation to use as we undergo shifts in identity. A stronger and clearer me is emerging. Choose affirmations according to your need. As you excavate your buried dreams, you need the assurance that such explorations are permissible. I recover and enjoy my identity. For me, I think right now the most useful one I've found is, it's a Bible quote, but I think it transcends sort of Christianity, so I don't really use it in sort of a Christian way, but it's to be still and know that I am God. Which reminds me that I don't have to organize and be in charge of everything, that I can just relax and take care of my own responsibilities, and I can trust that everyone else around me will take care of theirs. The universe will run itself. I am not God. I am not in charge of everything. It's deeply comforting. So, next section, buried dreams and exercise. As recovering creatives, we often have to excavate our own pasts for the shards of buried dreams and delights. Do a little digging, please. Be fast and frivolous. This is an exercise in spontaneity, so be sure to write your answers out quickly. Speed kills the censor. And now we have 6 lists that I'm going to make real quick. 1. List 5 hobbies that sound fun. Bird watching, graffiti artistry, oil painting, horseback riding, whatever that thing is that I see on the Charles River where the people are all rowing the one giant canoe looking thing. Whatever that is. That looks fun too. 2. List 5 classes that sound fun. Spanish, pottery. Oh, this is hard. Oh, I'm trying to think of things that are fun, not just useful. Oh, that's a really hard thing to determine. Fun, I guess, would be salsa dancing. Ooh, that would be fun. Um, Community organizing and dog training. 3. List 5 things you personally would never do that sound fun. That's an interesting question. If it sounds fun, why would I never do it? I guess maybe think. Okay, well, I'll just do it. So, competitive dance. Um, Being a pastry chef. Uh, Competitive slam poetry doesn't really appeal to me. But it seems fun at the same time. I think it'd be fun to know how to like build a barn, like the way people used to just be able to do. And another thing that would be fun that I would never do, buy a house. 4. List 5 skills that would be fun to have. I would like to. I don't know. I feel like the skills that I think would be fun to have, I usually just go out and teach myself. I guess ones that I don't currently have would be sort of higher level money management would be really empowering, which I feel like is fun. I would like to feel more confident, just like playing with like little kids. When I like meet my friends' kids, I would like to just like be better with little kids. Skills I would like to be fun to have. I am so bad at thinking about fun stuff, I'm realizing. Oh my. Skills that would be fun to have. Design my own clothing so it fits me just right. Know how to run a stall in a farmer's market. And last one, I would love to learn how to weave on a loom. So 5. List 5 things you used to enjoy doing. I used to enjoy sewing on my sewing machine. Running before my knees blew out. Writing sonnets. I do more free verse now. What else? I used to enjoy baking bread, both at home and as a job. And I used to really enjoy spontaneous get-togethers with my friends back in my 20s when nobody had anything on their schedule and you could just text someone and say, hey, I want to hang out right now. 6. List 5 silly things that you would like to try once. I would like to try karaoke sober. I would also like to maybe help out with children's theater. I would like to it's really hard, you guys. What else? Some silly things I want to try at once. I feel like I'm so afraid to be silly. I feel like I'm so very focused on being taken seriously because I look so much younger than my age. That I'm afraid to also look silly because I just think I'll lose all credibility. But that's me avoiding the question. Silly things I would like to try once. I would like to wear a silly Halloween costume to work. And participate in the Honk Festival, which, if you're not from around Boston area, is a big musical demonstration protest thing where people dress up in crazy outfits and form big marching bands, and it's a huge production and very, very silly. And the last thing would be doing stand-up comedy. I think I would be good at it if I were brave enough to do it. As you may have gathered by this point in your work, we will approach certain problems from many different angles, all of them aimed at eliciting more information from your unconscious about what you might consciously enjoy. The exercise that follows will teach you enormous amounts about yourself, as well as giving you some free time in which to pursue the interests you just listed. Reading deprivation, the next section is titled. I don't know about that. Let's see what she has to say. If you feel stuck in your life or in your art, a few jump starts are more effective than a week of reading deprivation. No reading? That's right, no reading. For most artists, words are like tiny tranquilizers. We have a daily quota of media chat that we swallow up. Like a greasy food, it clogs our system. Too much of it and we feel, yes, fried. It is a paradox that by emptying our lives of distractions, we are actually filling the well. Without distractions, we are once again thrust into the sensory world. With no newspaper to shield us, a train becomes a viewing gallery. With no novel to sink into and no television to numb us out, an evening becomes a vast savanna in which furniture and other assumptions get rearranged. Reading deprivation casts us into our inner silence, a space some of us begin to immediately fill with new words. Long, gossipy conversations, television binging, the radio as a constant chatty companion. We often cannot hear our own inner voice, the voice of our artist's inspiration, above the static. In practicing reading deprivation, we need to cast a watchful eye on these other pollutants. They poison the well. Boy, do I feel pretty resistant to this, but I guess we'll keep reading. If we monitor the inflow and keep it to a minimum, we will be rewarded for our reading deprivation with embarrassing speed. Our reward will be a new outflow. Our own art, our own thoughts and feelings will begin to nudge aside the sludge of blockage, to loosen it and move it upward and outward, until once again our well is running freely. Reading deprivation is a very powerful tool, and a very frightening one. Even thinking about it can bring up enormous rage. For most blocked creatives, reading is an addiction. We gobble the words of others rather than digest our own thoughts and feelings, rather than cook up something of our own. All right, fully called out there. Well done, Julia Cameron. In my teaching, the week I assign reading deprivation is always a tough one. I go to the podium knowing that I will be the enemy. I break the news that we won't be reading, and then I brace myself for the waves of antagonism and sarcasm that follow. At least one student always explains to me, pointedly, in no uncertain terms, that he or she is a very important and busy person with duties and obligations that include reading. This information is inevitably relayed in a withering tone that implies I am an idiot child, an artistic flake, unable to grasp the complexities of an adult's life. I just listen. When the rage has been vented, when all the assigned reading for college courses and jobs has been mentioned, I point out that I have had jobs and I have gone to college, and that in my experience I had many times wriggled out of reading for a week due to procrastination. As blocked creatives, we can be very creative at wriggling out of things. I ask my class to turn their creativity to wriggling into not reading. But what will we do comes next. Here is a brief list of some things that people do when they are not reading. Listen to music, make curtains, wash the dog, sort closets, pay bills, write old friends, repot some plants, mend, knit, cook, fix the bike, watercolor, rewire the lamp, paint the bedroom, rearrange the kitchen, work out, meditate, have friends to dinner, get the stereo working, sort bookshelves, go dancing. Even at the safe remove of the written word, I can feel the shock waves of antagonism about trying this tool. I will tell you that those who have most resisted it have come back the most smugly rewarded for having done it. The nasty bottom line is this: sooner or later, if you are not reading, you will run out of work and be forced to play. Well, shit. You'll light some incense, or put on an old jazz record, or paint a shelf turquoise, and then you will feel not just better, but actually a little excited. Don't read. If you can't think of anything else to do, cha-cha. Yes, you can read and do this week's tasks. All right. So I think, given that this book was written back in the early 90s before smartphones were really a thing, I think I'm also going to include just sort of like zoning out on Substack on my phone. I think I'm going to include that as well. I think she would have maybe wanted me to avoid that this week as well. All right, so let's look at the tasks for this week. 1. Environment. Describe your ideal environment. Town, country, swank, cozy. 1 paragraph. 1 image, drawn or clipped, that conveys this. What's your favorite season? Why? Go through some magazines and find an image of this, or draw it. Place it near your working area. 2. Time travel. Describe yourself at 80. What did you do after 50 that you enjoyed? Be very specific. Now write a letter from you at 80 to you at your current age. What would you tell yourself? What interests would you urge yourself to pursue? What dreams would you encourage? I like the sound of this one. 3. Time travel. Remember yourself at 8. What did you like to do? What were your favorite things? Now write a letter from you at 8 to you at your current age. What would you tell yourself? This one feels like it would be kind of intense. I think I'm going to leave this towards the end of the week. 4. Environment. Look at your house. Is there any room that you could make into a secret private space for yourself? Convert the TV room? Buy a screen or hang a sheet and cordon off a section of some other room? This is your dream area. It should be decorated for fun and not as an office. All you really need is a chair or a pillow, something to write on, some kind of little altar area for flowers and candles. This is to help you center on the fact that creativity is a spiritual, not an ego issue. Use your life pie from week 1 to review your growth. Has that nasty tarantula changed shape yet? Haven't you been more active, less rigid, more expressive? Be careful not to expect too much too soon. That's raising the jumps. Growth must have time to solidify into health. 1 day at a time, you are building the habit patterns of a healthy artist. Easy does do it. List ongoing self-nurturing toys you could buy your artist. Books on tape, magazine subscriptions, theater tickets, a bowling ball. 6. Write your own artist's prayer. And there's a reference to this on page 223. So let's flip to that real quick and see what she's talking about. So this artist's prayer is as follows. O great Creator, we are gathered together in your name that we may be of greater service to you and to our fellows. We offer ourselves to you as instruments. We open ourselves to your creativity in our lives. We surrender to you our old ideas. We welcome your new and more expansive ideas. We trust that you will lead us. We trust that it is safe to follow you. We know you created us and that creativity is your nature and our own. We ask you to unfold our lives according to your plan, not our low self-worth. Help us to believe that it is not too late and that we are not too small or too flawed to be healed by you and through each other and made whole. Help us to love one another, to nurture each other's unfolding, to encourage each other's growth and understand each other's fears. Help us to know that we are not alone, that we are loved and lovable. Help us to create as an act of worship to you. All right, that's not bad. So, write your own artist's prayer and use it every day for a week. 7. An extended artist date. Plan a small vacation for yourself. 1 weekend day. Get ready to execute it. 8. Open your closet. Throw out or hand on or donate one low self-worth outfit. You know the outfit. Make space for the new. 9. Look at one situation in your life that you feel you should change but haven't yet. What is the payoff for you in staying stuck? 10. If you break your reading deprivation, write about how you did it. In a tantrum? A slip-up? A binge? How do you feel about it? Why? So, those are the tasks for week 4, which is again titled Recovering a Sense of Integrity. I'm really interested to check out these tasks. We're about a month in, and I do feel myself changing. And I feel myself at a tipping point where I could stop now because it's scary, or I can keep going because I know that I've experienced change in the past and been fine. So I feel like I'm going to go with that. So that was the latest episode of Lizzy Co and the Artist's Way, featuring Lizzy Co and Julia Cameron's Artist's Way. Thank you so much for joining, and please come back next week when we look at week 5, which is titled Recovering a Sense of Possibility.